What's up everybody? Today I want to do a quick video showing you how to kit bash some Ork Kommandos for Warhammer 40k. If you like this type of tabletop gaming content, please don't forget to like this video and consider subscribing to my channel. As of right now, the only way to get Ork Kommandos is to buy the old resin kit, and there are only 5 different models, so kit bashing up a few will not only add some variety to your army, but it's going to be much cheaper than buying the resin model. This is a really good project for beginners. The only thing you're going to need is some basic hobby tools, some leftover orc bits you got laying around, as well as some green stuff. And don't freak out, you don't need to have any sculpting skills to do this. Now when you take a look at the Ork Kommandos, they're basically orc boys with some extra gear. So the next thing we're going to need is some orc boys bodies. You can either grab these out of an orc boy kit, or you can do the smart thing and go down to your friendly local game store and see if they sell any pre-owned orc boys. I grabbed myself a handful, stripped the paint off and took them off their bases, and popped off the arms and heads, so I was just left with the legs and the torsos. So let's take a closer look at the Games Workshop kit. Each of the commandos is armed with a choppa and slugga, but a bunch of other common features are gas masks, extra ammo, rope, a big backpack, pouches, an extra choppa, tank buster bombs, dynamite, stick grenades, as well as these other grenades that are basically just stick grenades without the sticks. And if you decide you'd like to do a knob commando, then he's going to have a power claw. Now, keeping that in mind, you want to grab all of your extra orc bits, not only for your boys kits, but for anything else. And you're going to want to go through them all and find anything that looks like it might fit well on a commando. A couple of particular things to keep an eye out for are knob backpacks, anything that has a stick grenade, and any head that looks like it has something like a gas mask or an eyepiece. I also found this extra grot body from a bike kit that I'm going to use to recreate the Knob Kommandos backpack. So the first thing we're going to do is work on making backpacks for our commandos, as that's one of the most distinctive features of the resin kit. Take any of the bits that you have that roughly resemble a backpack to begin with, and trim off any of the parts that don't look like they belong. You can use nippers or an X-Acto blade. Just be careful not to cut yourself. Once those are trimmed off, just use a file to smooth out the edges. Now do this with as many backpacks as you have, just trimming them down to the basics. But if you run out of backpack bits, like I did, then that's where the green stuff comes in. Mix up a little ball of green stuff, and then form it into a roughly cube shape, maybe a little thinner in one dimension, so that it's roughly the shape of a backpack. You can do it all with your fingers. The nice thing about this is, because backpacks have an irregular shape, you don't have to be very good at sculpting. It really doesn't have to be fancy, because we're going to cover most of it anyway. Once you're happy with the shape you've got, sit the green stuff down on a non-sticky surface and leave it to dry. Next, let's go through and scavenge some grenades. You may have some extra stick grenades laying around, put those to the side. I took a few of these grenade throwers and cut the heads of the grenades off and then cleaned them up a little bit. You may have some grenades in your collection that are attached to other bits. For those, just trim off the extra bits as best you can, like this grot hand, and file down the edges. Again, they don't have to be perfect. One side's going to be glued to the miniature anyway. Last, I had this bundle of grenades. It took a little bit of effort, but you can cut the ends of each of the grenades off, clean them up a bit, and then you can cut one out of the bunch or separate the 3. If you're having trouble getting your knife through the thicker plastic, you can try carefully heating up the blade, and it should push through a little easier. Another thing you might want to do is go through and make sure you're going to have enough choppers and sluggers for all of the commandos you want to make. And if you don't have enough extras, like I didn't, either because they're already attached to your boys or because you use them in other projects, then you do have a few options. I used a few of the offhands from the shooters. You can attach tank buster bombs or choppas to these hands pretty easily, either just by gluing them on, or if you want to get fancy, you can heat them up a little bit and you can bend the fingers over to make it look like the orc is gripping the object. And another thing you can do is make a bundle of dynamite for one of the orcs to hold. I took one of the choppas that was an axe and cut the axe head off. You can then take any small bits that have cylindrical pieces and cut them off into small sections and glue them in a circle around the end of the handle of the axe. And then grab some string and wrap it around the bundle a few times and put a dab of super glue to hold it in place. After that, you can use a little bit of small gauge wire and glue it on the end of a couple of the sticks to represent the fuses. And you can also wrap the string around the end of the fuses to hold them together. Now that the hard part is done, let's move on to assembling. Once your green stuff backpacks are dried, carefully glue them to the back of your boys, being careful not to put too much pressure on them. Once that's done, you can find some of these little pockets and pouches. These are actually exactly the same ones as are on the resin kits, and you can glue these all over the backpack. You can go for as much or as little coverage as you'd like, but I'd recommend at least a few across the back and one on the side. And you can do the same for any of the plastic backpacks that you've stripped down, just putting a pocket wherever you think is appropriate. Next up, we're going to attach a couple of grenades to the top of one of the backpacks. This is especially good if one of the plastic backpacks has an irregular shaped top. Just stick a little ball of green stuff on there and then press 2 of the stick grenades going in opposite directions on top of it. Clean up any of the green stuff that oozes out and wait for that to set. Next, you can take any of your spare choppas and glue them onto the side of the pack. They tend to go on the orc's left on the resin models, but feel free to mix it up. And finally, I used some coiled up wire to represent a coil of rope like you see on the real commando models. But honestly, I didn't like how the wire came out. And after this one, I started using the string and it worked a lot better. Just coil it around itself a few times and then wrap up the middle and you're good to go. Feel free to stick on an extra tank buster bomb, a slugger, or any other orky bits that you like. And this is what the backpacks can look like when you're all done decorating them. Next, you can attach the heads of your choice, again prioritizing any that look like they have gas masks or eye pieces. And I would also recommend attaching the arms before we go any further, so that none of the accessories you put on the front will block the arms. After that's all done, you can take these little strips of ammo and using a little bit of glue, just attach them to the shoulders. And then we can grab a few of the hand grenades that we made and attach them to some of their belts. Just make sure that if there's a rough side that you put that towards the body so that it's not seen. This is 3 fully kit-bashed Ork Kommandos. Now if you'd like to do a knob commando, you can basically follow most of the same steps as for the boys. However, I decided to customize a grot backpack for my knob commando. First I took this backpack, I think it's from a big shooter, and I cut the grot off the top of it and then sand down the top. Again, the heating up the knife trick is going to work well here. And I took this grot body and cut off the excess parts and also cut off his bottom half and cleaned it up a bit. I decided to replace his hand with this grot hand I had in my bit box. Just cut the shoulder as clean as possible, hit it with a file, and then glue the new arm on. I trimmed the pipe in his right hand down so that it was a bit shorter and added a fuse in order to make it look like a stick of dynamite, similar to the resin model. Then I simply glued the new body on top of the backpack. I added a few pockets. And for one last splash of detail, I wrapped some string around a Space Marine helmet and attached it to the side of his backpack. Now, before you paint any of these guys, I do recommend that anywhere that you use yarn or string, you should dab a little bit of super glue into it just to stiffen it up so it takes the paint better. And then we can slap some bases on these guys, a quick paint job, and boom, you got yourself a whole army of Ork Kommandos. So that's it, a quick and easy way to kitbash some Ork Kommandos. This whole process took me about an afternoon to make 10 of them, so it was really quick and easy, and it doesn't require any special tools. Everybody should give it a shot even if they've never done any kitbashing before. Leave a comment below if there's any cool Ork bits that you didn't see me use that go particularly well on an Ork Kommando. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more, and thanks for watching.